Yeah, everybody, welcome to eChannel News. We've got Karl Mattson. He's the new company's first Chief Information Security Office, CISO, at Endor Labs. And we're going to talk about his journey and what he's doing over there. First of all, Karl, welcome. How are you?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me, Julian.
Great stuff. So let's jump into this. I mean, you've got a long, incredible history and so many different achievements. It's sort of hard to articulate it, but give me a bit of the journey. Like, how did you get started in this game, and how did you end up at Endor Labs?
So, real brief history. First of all, I won the lottery when I was 19 years old, which was I enlisted in the Army, and I received orders to go to NSA. So, by no fault of my own, I started my security career for the first 10 years working for the government as an analyst at NSA. And then spent about 15 years in the commercial world, mostly in banking, earning my first CISO role at a bank in about 2015, later at a mortgage company. Large organizations, large enterprise IT and IT security. And then a couple of years ago, I moved over to a security vendor for the first time and joining a startup. My first small organization, really, I kind of got bit by that startup bug. And so after 3 years of focusing on application security, when my last company was acquired by Akamai, I was just thrilled to join. To look around and find what I thought was the most sophisticated application security company around, and so Varun and I had been talking for a while, and so I joined Endor Labs, and so this journey for me is has been really rewarding. To each time that I've moved in my career, I've really moved to a smaller and smaller company each time. Because that really allows me to have my imprint on an organization and be a part of something right at its inception.
So when you landed, was it exactly what you thought it was, or were you shocked?
Not much shock. Ironically, because I was an enterprise CISO in my prior life, I was actually a customer of Varun, our CEO at Endor Labs. His prior two companies, Cipher Cloud and Redlock, I was a customer. So I was very familiar with the team. And so here at Endor Labs, we have a lot of those people from Palo Alto Networks, which acquired Redlock and Cipher Cloud. So many of the people who are here are people I'm familiar with their work. I'm familiar with them. And so this was joining an Endor Labs team that, largely speaking, had worked together and who I had a high degree of trust and familiarity with.
Wow. So you loved it. So zooming out a little bit, I mean, with your experience in the world of cyber, right? What's your take on what's happening right now, particularly as you know, we've AI is doing a lot of crazy stuff. But what's your take? Like, are we headed in the right direction from a vendor perspective? Are the bad actors still way ahead of us? Are we catching up? Should we be worried? What's your take on it?
Well, I mean, I think with the introduction of AI as a kind of as a retail or an average person novelty is interesting, but I don't think it's really changing a whole lot in the big picture. But behind the scenes, security and technology is still two things are still true. Number one, fundamentals matter. Fundamental security practices, fundamental technology approaches still apply. At the same time, those things are picking up in pace dramatically. So the way that we deploy technology, the way that we support technology, everything we're doing in technology and security is picking up in pace significantly. AI capabilities are contributing to that pace acceleration. But that pace acceleration did not start with AI, and it didn't start with cloud, and it didn't. I mean, it goes back to 50 years. We're talking about the increasing the speed of change or an increase of the rate of change. That goes back to the first computers. We're talking about 1940s and 50s. That's not news. It just continues to happen, and AI is really igniting that just to be the continued focus. So as vendors go, I think that what we're seeing companies that have innovative technologies one year become they look aged very quickly. The RSA sandbox winner from 3 years ago now is a generation behind, and that's a little startling for us. It's startling for us to see companies kind of come in fashion and out of fashion so quickly. As a marketplace goes, as a marketplace of ideas, that competitive space is, I would contend, is healthy. That is how security gets better as we are prompted to compete with in the arena of ideas and in the arena of innovation.
Yeah, I mean, with 6,000 vendors in the cyberspace right now, it just feels like everything is like speeding up. There's just a lot of choices. There's a lot of noise. It's difficult to sort of sort through. As a CISO, being having all these choices, right, on the table for you, how do you go about figuring out, right, what's what do you need, what you don't need? Is there a process that you go through?
Absolutely, and I think that that process starts with evaluating sort of I call them circles of trust. So circles of trust include first of all, peer groups of CISOs where you can talk about practices and technologies that work for you, and those and oftentimes let's just say an example of that would be that in financial services you have FSISAC, where you have a trusted network of peers who are going through the same challenges that you are, and you can talk to those peers freely. So another trusted circle might be something like a channel partner who is looking at a technology category and they see 10 different sort of competing solutions in the space, and they can give you a better read on how to narrow those technology selections down. And then, of course, then it comes down to the selection of your team of people who can select technologies intelligently, because it isn't the case that a CISO has any prayer of knowing even a small fraction of 6,000 companies. But what you can do is you can invest in identifying those people and communities that you can trust in, and to some degree, the investment in those communities of trust is rewarding because you can make those relationships turn into technology selection well confidently.
No doubt. I mean, it's a bit like crowdsourcing in a way, right? You
Yep.
figure out where your teams are. Sometimes, though, it's the crowd's going to one direction, and there is always these unicorns that's changing the game in some of these things, and sometimes it's a challenge because no one really knows, where things are headed. Particularly like how the bad actors are sort of changing the game
Yep.
quite dramatically. Now they're all switched over to mobile devices. Apparently, they're attacking that way, and so on, and even two-factor is under attack right now, and I can go on and on and on, but in reality, the landscape is changing so rapidly. It's almost like you have to have this 360-degree goggles, if you will, to see what's going on. How do you stay ahead of it as a CISO? Like your peers, yes, but is it more internal about the type of company you have, the type of attacks you're seeing? Are you seeing something that wow, we should be fixing this problem?
I think it starts with understanding your organization's business confidently. So let's say that we're in if I'm in the business of generating pharmaceutical new patents for intellectual property. If I understand that business model to a finer degree, and I understand my threat model, then I know with a much more fine grain what to tune out of the news stream of the events. If I don't understand my business purpose, if I don't understand how my organization makes revenue or how it services customers, then I have to pay attention to everything. And I think that's what it's really it starts with, because I don't find that on keeping sort of current with the threat landscape to be terribly challenging in the context of understanding my business first. And I think that's probably the challenge of a CISO is to get a confident understanding of how does my business make money? How does my business serve its customers? How does my business go to market, make its products? And when you can really understand that fine-grained, the threat model that could affect and expose that value chain, reduces the world of threat considerably. Even if you're a large organization, then a lot of things fade away very quickly.
Yeah, I mean, it's almost like trying to find a way to prioritize these things, right? Because you could be chasing, red flags all day long,
Mhm.
right? But how many of them really you need to fix like right now or ever? Because there's, bigger fish to fry. Um, just before we jump a little bit deeper in Endor Labs, give me a bit of a 1 minute review of what the company does again for those who don't know the company.
Sure. Endor Labs is a company that focuses on the entire supply chain of software, and so this really starts with our first mission, which was to focus on the security of open source software and software composition analysis. And so what we did is we reimagined what analyzing software meant, so that we could understand software and its vulnerabilities, so that we could tune out all the noise, and so that we could understand software in a way that we could have an intelligent and specific conversation with our developers about how to address risk in our software. When we have that fine-grained, detailed understanding of identifying vulnerabilities, there are a whole series of positive upstream and downstream consequences. Just the quality of discussion, the quality of practices all across our development lifecycle improve because of that. And so now that we started with that sort of software composition analysis piece, SCA, now there's a whole range of sort of practices that Endor's built out, creating a whole series of process automations of container scanning, secret scanning, SBOM management, all along the continuum of secure software. But it really starts with that precise, detailed understanding of software exposure, what we call reachability, and understanding software at an nth degree of detail, so that we can have an intelligent conversation with our developers.
Yeah, and I think most companies now are even doing their own software in house with quotes. They're outsourcing to people who are developing and pulling open source from various places that they don't know where it's been, type thing. Just a kind of a basic overview, like what is the dangers of just getting code, putting in the software, boom, putting it up without actually having some kind of forensics or something that's make sure is that it's actually secure. What could
Sure.
happen?
So yeah, so the OWASP, the Open Web Application Security Project, has an OWASP, open source security top 10 risks. And most of us in security are familiar with this, like Log4j or Heartbleed. These are major software vulnerabilities, and vulnerabilities that we all know about in open source software. But in the OWASP top 10 of open source risks, only two of the 10 are actual software vulnerabilities. The rest of the 10 are other things that can go wrong with software. So, like an example would be where the software, the open source software package, goes unmanaged, or there's someone hijacks the domain, or implants malware into the package. There's so many things that can go wrong with the use of open source. There are very popular open source packages that really only have one or two maintainers out there in the world. And there are thousands of developers who rely on those packages as core components of their applications. So the vulnerability of the software is only one of a number of what we call operational risks to using open source. Now we would be a champion of saying the open source software is a sort of a radical advantage of the developer to build sophisticated applications quickly, but it also exposes the organization if we don't have a precise understanding of those risks that are introduced. It wasn't that long ago, even a decade ago, in financials, where open source software use was strictly forbidden. We're long past that now. Developers are using open source for pretty much every application now.
Absolutely. So, Carl, what's your mission over at Endor? What do you do, and what do you get up in what worries you, and what keeps you awake at night?
So my role is really dual-headed. So I have the internal role of protecting Endor, our assets, our products, the customer information that we have, and then I have the second role, the second hat to wear, which is to talk about the mission of Endor, broadly speaking, to the community. So what keeps me up at night isn't so much that there's I call it like an inherent risk to the product getting attacked, so much as understanding that this is a software security landscape that moves quickly. And so, for example, let's say that by the end of this session, the next Log4j comes out. And so that hitting hitting the street in the security business means a bunch of things. First and foremost, we're going to have to make the adjustment on our platform, accordingly. But we're then going to have to start equipping our customers to identify, patch, and remediate their environments. And so all of that sort of that fire drill of response that we go through with a severe critical vulnerability, that gets your heart rate going. And that's the kind of that's why we're here. We're here to solve that problem and to be the asset when that kind of situation is present.
Interesting stuff. Well, seems like you're getting good sleep, so I know you have it under control. One of the things that I've been recently talking about is these AI, enabled PCs and the kind of additional vulnerabilities, right? It opens our world to. First of all, do you know anything about that? And what's your thoughts on it, if you do?
Well, on the user endpoint in the PC, I'll be perfectly frank. You and I might just be shopping at Best Buy or Costco, seeing the same ads that you are, because I'm focused on the application side,
Yeah.
on what we're doing in terms of what the developers are doing in terms of products, and what the application developers are using, AI for co-piloting and AI driven development is breathtaking. On the consumer side, but what every American has access to now, just in terms of co-piloting and Microsoft and Google products, is itself sort of game changing. I think the early observation though is that what we're seeing is just a dramatically accelerated speed. I don't see a lot of new like there's not a lot of new threats, so to speak. There are instances of, for example, social engineering or spoofed
Mhm.
video. Maybe this isn't really Carl here on the video. Maybe it's an impersonator. Yes, those are technically possible, but they're not widespread yet. Those are not in common use. And so I think the threat actor space has yet to really show itself and how it's going to use some of these capabilities quite yet.
Well, I was trying to get at the so moving forward, by the next couple of years, 60% of all the PCs being sold out there will be
Yep.
AI enabled. And there's going to be, to use that, you need AI enabled applications.
Yep.
And it's a whole different animal, if you will, in
Yep.
applications. And it accesses data in a different way. It's quite extensive. Does your solution extend to how these companies are developing AI enabled applications as well?
Yeah, absolutely. So if I go back sort of pre-Endor, the most recent generation of analyzing software for vulnerabilities is to look at what's called a software manifest. Think of that as the menu at a restaurant. It's just a list of the things inside of software. Um, but when you look at the list of items on a menu of a restaurant, you can't really extrapolate whether the food tastes good. You actually have to taste the food. And so Endor's next generation of software composition analysis actually goes that next step and actually tastes the food to idea is it good or not. Whereas the previous version, looking at the manifest, is just looking at what the ingredient is. So what happens with AI generated code is AI generated code may not even be bringing in packages of open source into code, just might be bringing in code snippets. And so what will happen is the actual manifest itself of software now won't even have the ingredient listed anymore. So so the legacy SCA technologies used to have false positives, but in the future of AI generated code or AI assisted development, they won't even have false positives. They'll just have nothing. It'll be silent because the manifest will be sort of absent of information. So what we do in terms of analyzing the composition of the software becomes that much more necessary. It becomes that much more necessary to understand at a sort of line by line or a function by function level how software works. And then if we're not doing this, we'll call it the Endor style of analysis, then the AI inspired developer will sort of escape all security control. They'll be implementing source code that has no control whatsoever, and so it becomes that much more imperative to analyze source code with this sort of model in place.
Got it. Well, Carl, I'll leave you with the last word, my friend. What do you want the channel community to know about Endor Labs, and how do they reach you?
Endorlabs.com, easy website. Oh, one of the things that I'd love the community to know about Endor is that we're incredibly easy to learn about and try. I mean, things like free trials and POVs and our collateral is not gated, things like that. We're trying to be as easy to do business with across the board, from from the mid-sized enterprise all the way to large scale enterprise. And so if you go to endorlabs.com, I think you'll find we're very accessible to try and learn everything we do. It doesn't require elaborate training. It's pretty self-evident when you can set up an account for yourself and read our documentation portal is public. That's unusual for a security company. We're very proud of having our documentation for our platform to be completely public.
Good stuff. Well, hey, all those MSPs and those channel partners and those end customers, they got to know what's in their code, right?
Yep.
Because what's lurking in there could come back and bite you. So, Carl, thank you very much. Keep us posted, and congrats on the gig, and all the best.
Thanks, Julian. Appreciate it.
Cheers.